Okay, we're back. Let's start talking about the Celtics and the 76ers. Boston Celtics beat the 76ers 114-102. A really, really impressive game on a number of fronts from Boston, because it felt like, to me, there were times in the fourth quarter, given some of the late game offense issues that Boston has had over the course of this playoff run throughout the course of the season, it felt like this could have gotten away from Boston, and they didn't let it happen. I love the fact that they did not let that happen. Jason Tatum goes for 7 points in the last 3 minutes. I believe he outscored Philadelphia in that time. I believe they only had 6 points in the last 3 minutes. It was a really, really important kind of line in the sand, it felt like, for Boston, where Philadelphia is on their home court. They're really starting to aggressively come back in this game. It felt like it was kind of a 10-point cushion for a lot of the second half. And Philly finally makes their run. They get it down to 100-96. And it's just like, oh shit, here we go again. It could have been that for Boston. They've had these issues, certainly in recent times and throughout large swaths of the season. That didn't happen. And I think it's in part because of Jason Tatum. And I think it is in part because of some adjustments that Joe Mazzulla has made throughout the course of this series that I think deserve a lot of props. So in game one, James Harden really did a number on the Boston Celtics. The way that he was able to find the advantageous matchups that he wanted in order to either get to the paint, touch the paint, be able to get to his step back, any sort of shot that James Harden wanted to get to, he was able to get there. At this point, Joe Mazzulla has gone away, for the most part, from playing what Boston prefers in terms of the two big structure, and they've played smaller in games 2 and game 3. They've played a lot more Grant Williams. I believe Grant Williams played something like 29 minutes in game 2, and then in game 3 tonight plays 23 minutes. And his minutes, I thought, were really, really important. The other guy that was incredibly important in this game was obviously Al Horford. Al Horford goes for 17 points on 6 shots, makes 5 threes, 7 rebounds, 2 assists. And it wasn't just the shot making, it was the way that Boston, particularly in the second half, I thought offensively, took Joel Embiid away from the rim and made life harder for him, especially with those smaller lineups where they can play 5 out and really force Joel into space. So let's just kind of dive into a few clips. I didn't grab a crazy amount of these ones because I thought that it kind of spoke for itself in some moments. I felt that Boston being able to get Joel Embiid out into space in this game was kind of the most important thing that they were able to do successfully in this game in the second half when they needed to. So here you're going to see Marcus Smart. He's going to come down the court. We're going to see Al Horford trailing into this play. He's going to set this screen here, and it's just a really smart screen. He kind of continues to nudge James Harden away. He tries to isolate James Harden onto him so that Joel is forced to guard Marcus Smart in space here. And look, this is Joel being pretty okay once Marcus kind of tries to back him down. But the key here is that Marcus recognizes that he's got Jason Tatum just for a dribble handoff where Jason's going to be able to get downhill against Joel. And Joel is going to have to play drop because Joel can only play drop. And it's just a great screen here on Tobias Harris from Marcus Smart. And at that point, you're forcing Joel Embiid into a one-on-one island situation against Jason Tatum. And that's going to be a very difficult spot in space for Joel Embiid. Jason Tatum drives to the rim this time. Good contest from Joel Embiid. I don't really have any qualms with how he played this. I think he played the possession well. It's just that Jason Tatum against Joel Embiid in space is a mismatch that favors Jason Tatum. So here we're going to see, I believe this is Jaylen Brown who's going to catch this ball on the wing. And he recognizes immediately here, as soon as he turns the corner, that Joel is on him, but that he's going to be able to string out Joel. I think he recognizes it right here. James Harden just kind of peels off and lets the switch happen, which is probably not quite good enough from James. But as soon as Jaylen realizes that he's got Joel strung out onto him, he doesn't go up to the wing where PJ Tucker can kind of get that switch back onto him. He decides to go to the corner instead, which is big. And this is where, look, there's nobody in the paint right now. There's absolutely no bodies in the paint right now for the Philadelphia 76ers. This is beautiful, well-spaced, spread out, 5-out offense for the Boston Celtics, where Al Horford is able to make shots because he goes 5 of 7 from 3 tonight. And here, this is just Jaylen Brown. He's going to shake him. He's going to blow by. He's going to just make that shot super easy. He gets the foul on Joel Embiid and goes to the line. He knocks down the and one. This is just simple stuff at the 10:30 mark of the third quarter. Here we go again, the 9-minute mark of the third quarter now. This is going to be Jason Tatum bringing the ball up the court. Good screen from Al Horford. And again, this is just a one-on-one situation with Joel Embiid on an island, having to deal with Jason Tatum and his shiftiness and his ability to stop-start with his handle. Here we go again. The shake, the little Euro step into the floater. I don't, again, think that's a bad rep in terms of a possession from Joel Embiid. I think he did everything he could to make life harder for Jason Tatum. Jason Tatum on Joel Embiid in those ball screen scenarios is a mismatch. So what we're going to see on this possession, I believe, is that Joel is going to come up and he's going to actually call out a pre-switch here. You can see him point to PJ Tucker. He's trying to get PJ to be the one to take the ball screen, and he'll actually go and guard Jaylen Brown this time. That way they can maybe avoid the mismatch of Joel in space if Jason Tatum kind of does not handle the ball screen well. So look, PJ Tucker flies out. Joel Embiid is responsible at this point for Jaylen Brown. Jaylen comes up, sets the little shimmy screen here, and he gets the ball at the top of the key. It's a beautiful little almost pick and pop. It's like it's not quite a Spain action, but it has a similar kind of texture to it in terms of the way it works out in practicality. Here, Jaylen Brown, it's almost like a delayed Spain action where it's like they were like reading what was happening on the court as opposed to it being like a primary goal of the set here to get that like screen the screener action essentially. And it came because of the pre-switch that Joel called out. So because they pre-switched, Jason recognizes it. He just brings it back out to the key to Jaylen. And again, this is Jaylen Brown on an island against Joel Embiid. And his first step is too fast for Joel Embiid. That's the reality of the situation. That's all there is to it. He's going to be able to get by him every single time if he wants to. This one now, I believe this is the last one we've got. This is at the 3:20 mark of the third quarter. All of these, by the way, in the third quarter, as you can see. This one actually does involve Rob Williams. He comes up, he sets the screen, then flips it to a little step-up screen. And Joel is just way too deep in his drop here. Malcolm Brogdon can shoot. There's not really an excuse for him being that deep in the drop there. This is just a walk-in three for Malcolm Brogdon. One underrated thing about this series that I was texting about with a friend earlier tonight, I think Tyrese Maxey has actually been like a really big part of why Philadelphia has been competitive in this series, not just on offense, but actually on defense as well. He's gotten a lot better defensively. He's not quite a sieve anymore. He is someone that fights and battles and scratches and claws. And he did really work hard here to get over the top of this step-up screen. So here he gets over the top of the initial screen and then comes the step up, and look at the recovery. Like he fights into it. He tries to get back into it. It's just a walk-in three for Malcolm Brogdon. That can't happen. That was a huge three. It gave Boston a 7-point lead. It got them back into the, three possession advantage scenario. It was just really, really important. I thought that Joel Embiid was able to be taken advantage of in that way throughout the course of that third quarter, with Joe Mazzulla making those adjustments. The other big key of this series, for me at least, is kind of what I referenced earlier in regard to James Harden. I think the way that Boston has essentially shrunk down the court, has sagged off of Philadelphia shooters like PJ Tucker and even at times Tobias Harris, and basically forced James Harden into being a purely perimeter player. James Harden can't really score right now unless he's getting to his step back, it feels like, or unless he's getting out on the break and getting all the way to the rim. He goes 3 for 14 tonight, 2 for 7 from 3, 5 turnovers. It felt like to me it was because Harden does not quite have that first step. If you guys remember, he had that Achilles injury in like late March, and it hasn't gone unnoticed to me that in game 1 of the Brooklyn series, James Harden played really well, and then was just okay in games 2 through 4. Got the 9-day break. I think it was 8 or 9 days. And then in game 1 of this series, he wins the game for Philadelphia. He was the best player on the court in that game. Goes for like 45 points or whatever he did. And now in games 2 and 3, with less rest, less time to recover, he has essentially not been able to replicate those performances. And yes, he had, I think, something like 16 points tonight. Yes, he had something like, I think, 11 assists versus his 5 turnovers. James is still a valuable player, but that version of James Harden is not who Philadelphia hoped that they were acquiring. James Harden needs to get back to the level that he was, maybe not even in game 1, but if he can be 80% of the guy that he was in game 1, that's the guy that Philadelphia needs, I think, moving forward. That's really kind of all I've got on this series. I think Boston's defensive structure and the way that they've managed James Harden has been quite impactful and effective in terms of just making him a perimeter player. The way that they've helped off of shooters has been really, really sharp and really, really smart. And PJ Tucker at times hurt them for it tonight. He goes 3 for 4 from 3. But you know what? You're going to live with that, and you're going to force PJ Tucker to beat you every single time. That's the reality of it. That's something that they didn't do in game 1. But I think Joe Mazzulla deserves a lot of credit in this game particularly, and also in game 2, by going smaller a lot of the time, being able to switch those actions at the top of the key with James Harden. James Harden, again, can't really get that separation against those switches, it feels like, in these games with a shorter runway. So that's important. I think Joe Mazzulla has done a great job. That decision to go smaller has really reaped rewards for the Boston Celtics.